Welcome. NOAA recently released its Global Climate Report for November of 2022. This video is a summary of that report. Well, what was the main points of that report? First of all, it was the 9th hottest November on record. That's at 143. La Nina is still present, and there's a 71% probability of it remaining until February or March of 2023. The global sea ice extent was the 4th lowest on record, and atmospheric carbon dioxide reached 417.51 parts per million, a new record for the month of November. Here's a map of what's going on around the world. North America had its 5th hottest autumn on record, Europe the 3rd hottest, Asia the 5th hottest, Africa the 11th hottest. South America had its coldest autumn in 9 years, and Oceania had its coldest autumn in 23 years. New Zealand had its hottest August on record. Arctic sea ice was the 8th lowest, and Antarctic sea ice was the 5th lowest. Well, let's see how these temperatures were distributed around the globe. We have what is called a percentiles map, which shows where records are being set. Dark blue indicates record low temperatures, and you can see there are no dark blue pixels on this map. The next darkest shade of blue indicates much colder than average, and there are a few of those dotted around, particularly in Australia. On the other hand, new high temperature records are indicated by dark red, and those are scattered all around the globe at the moment. Much warmer and warmer than average is pretty much the rest of the planet. There are a few cold parts. There's the western United States, which is unusual. We have that little finger of cold water off the western coast of South America, that is La Nina, and a few spots are in Central Africa and up in northern Russia. Globally, the temperature anomaly was 0.76, land that was 0.96, and ocean 0.68. That's in degrees centigrade. The northern hemisphere was 1 degree centigrade anomaly, and the southern hemisphere 0.5 degrees centigrade anomaly. One of the problems of discussing global temperatures is the effect of El Nino and La Nina. This plot I've got here shows the average temperature of the globe with the effects of El Nino and La Nina removed. I've done that by taking the Southern Oscillation Index, which currently is 0.3, and taking all values that are close to that and plotting them. And you can see there's a very distinct increase in temperature over the last 70 years, and it looks as though the temperature is accelerating. This array shows the relative ranking of each month over the last 6 years. And you can see on here November of 2022 is ranked 9th. But comparing the rest of the year with previous years, it looks as though 2022 is going to be the 6th warmest on record, which will push 2021 back to the 7th. Let's not forget the upper atmosphere. This is the lower troposphere as measured by the satellite data. And this is analysis done by Roy Spencer. You can see that the average global anomaly for this last month was 0.17 degrees centigrade, which is a bit lower than it has been recently. But the overall trend on this plot is upwards. And if you compare that with the surface anomaly, surface anomaly is 0.76 compared with 0.17 degrees centigrade. Now, the reason for that is that the lower troposphere is high in the atmosphere, several kilometers, like 4 or 5 kilometers up, and it's much cooler there, and is much more divorced from the effects of global warming. Arctic sea ice was at its 8th lowest on record for November of 2022. You can see the plot over the last 40 years, and again, the trend is distinctly down. In fact, the decadal trend is about a loss of 5% of Arctic ice per decade. This is a similar plot for the Antarctic, and an interesting thing here is that the overall trend now is downwards. This is the first month that I can recall that the overall trend in the Arctic has been measured to be downwards. So this is a major change. Overall, the Earth is losing about 2% of its sea ice per decade. So what is the probability of La Nina persisting much longer? La Nina is shown here in blue, and you can see its probability is dropping until by February is about equivalent to ENSO neutral conditions shown here in grey. Then for about 4 or 5 months, is much more likely that we'll have ENSO-neutral conditions, and then El Nino becomes the more likely phenomenon. And if this happens, we're likely to have rapid warming all around the globe. The origin of most of these problems seems to be carbon dioxide, so let's take a look at what's been going on there. In November of 2022, we reached 417.51 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That's another new record for carbon dioxide. In fact, every month now is setting a new record. That's 2.5 parts per million higher than this time last year, and that's a significant increase over what we've seen in past months. So that's slightly worrying. So to summarize once again, La Nina looks as likely to persist until the spring. Globally, the 9th hottest November on record, and the probability is that's going to be eclipsed by next year. Atmospheric CO2 reached a new record high for November and likely will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. So thank you for watching. Please stay safe until next time. Goodbye.